Hey everyone, Mike Iakovou here from KI Legal. I'm joined by some infamous characters. Good friend of mine, Nicholas Liapis from the Liapis Team at Compass Real Estate.
How's it going?
And John Perfetti from Citizens Bank, a loan officer who I also work very closely with. Gentlemen, thank you for both being here. I wanted to have this sit down in this beautiful, beautiful house, which we're going to be showing all of you just various pictures and videos of it. This is a current listing that you have.
Yep.
Just tell us a little bit about this listing.
This is a brand new constructed 5,500 square foot home located in Manhasset, and this is Long Island's Gold Coast. It's beautifully done, wood hardwood floors throughout, radiant floor heating in all the bathrooms, master wing. We have an elevator in here. It's 3-car garage, plenty of room for a pool. It's a special home.
Yeah, and I think all those things that you said, the Gold Coast, as they call it, is a very specific, nuanced, geographic location of real estate in not only New York or the Northeast, but the United States.
Yes.
It's something that we've read in The Great Gatsby.
Yeah.
And something that's kind of come to the forefront since, COVID, right?
Exactly.
And that's partially what I'd like to touch on today, just both on the real estate sales side, but also on the lending side. How have the respective markets changed since this world has changed? John, tell us a little bit about what you've been seeing on a macro level for real estate and lending in the Gold Coast of Nassau County.
Okay, so we've been seeing since the pandemic hit, so that February of 2020 is really when we started to see some change. And people just kind of migrating out to Long Island, this part of the area, more land, so they were...
But Westchester as well, too.
Westchester, Jersey, Connecticut.
Got it.
And then, so we've been seeing a lot. A lot of changes through the lending side of things. We've adjusted to it, all banks adjusted to it, what we can do, what we can't do. But I've seen a ton of people coming from the city, different areas, and just the sweet spot of that buying purchase power that they're looking at is that up to $1 million and under, and the market just was just crazy as far as just getting that, getting the buyers in there. We pre-approved a ton of people, but just getting their offer to stand out.
Yeah, and you mentioned changes on the lender side.
Yeah.
What are some changes that come to mind that have kind of come to fruition in the past 15 or 16 months?
The biggest changes was Manhattan. So our portfolio lending, our LTV requirements.
These are all. What is portfolio lending?
Portfolio lending is so what's called.
I know what portfolio lending is.
Your true jumbo, right? So your loan amounts over. With Citizens and my lending, we can go anything over $548,000 into our portfolio. So the portfolio is the bank is the investor, right? It's not Fannie Mae. It's not.
It's being held on the books.
It's being held on correct. It's being held on Citizens portfolio books. So that's your portfolio lending. Okay, so it's typically your higher end markets, your more money down. Where Citizens, we can do up to 5% down on some stuff. But we got during COVID, especially in the Manhattan area, the boroughs, we were kind of restricted to doing certain LTV requirements, loan to value requirements, down payments. So that changed. It opened up tremendously again over the last month and a half. So now we're back to normal lending.
Okay, so it's my understanding that there were some self-imposed restrictions because we didn't see where the market was going, and Citizens, like most banks, just wanted to play a bit conservative because, again, you can only prognosticate so much, right? So things have opened up. You mentioned portfolio lending, obviously at length. It's safe to say everything here would be jumbo-sized portfolio lending, right?
Absolutely.
What are you seeing, Nick, in terms of loan to values, down payments with respect to negotiations for purchasers?
So obviously, it would have to be a minimum of 20% down. I'm sure you can attest to this. and anything higher than that is sweetener to the pot. Obviously, the best thing is an all-cash deal, which we've been seeing a lot.
Those still happen?
Those still happen,
Wow.
especially as of late.
Tons of cash out there.
Yeah, especially as of late. There's a lot of money out there right now. People are coming from Manhattan. They've been buying up all Long Island. They're coming with nothing to sell in Manhattan, so they've been saving for all these years. They've been doing very well, and they've just been buying everything up. Inventory is at an all-time low for this reason. You know, in Manhasset alone, there's only 64 listings available.
64.
Where there's an average of about usually like 90 to 110 is average.
What do you attribute that to? Is it because homes are moving so quickly, or is it because people are saying, "Well, I'm going to sell and go where?" Everyone's trying to come here.
So a lot of people were selling. They're like, "Oh, you know what? This is my chance in getting out and moving to Florida." You know, like a lot of retirees.
Have you been seeing a lot of that?
I've been seeing some of that. Yeah, absolutely.
I see a ton of it.
Seeing a lot of that, and then people that just realized that after the pandemic hit Manhattan, they have 2 kids. They're living in the small apartment with their wives or whatever, and next thing you know, they're busting out of the seams because both parents are now working from home. They have the kids, so they're coming to Long Island. They want space, they want a house, they want a yard. So they've been absorbing all the inventory. Now there is a double-edged sword, like you said, where if somebody sells, I know plenty of people that are like, I would love to sell right now, I just don't know where I would go.
Yeah.
I'm afraid I won't find anything, and that's a very real thing that's been happening.
And to your point, people moving into secondary markets like Florida, it's safe to say that, and again, I don't know what type of knowledge either of you have with respect to secondary markets like Florida, but if people are moving out of the tri-state and they're going to Florida, naturally, Florida home prices and condo prices are probably going up as well.
So I can speak to that a little bit. Yeah, the prices in Florida and all over Florida, in South Carolina, North Carolina, everywhere south, they are booming.
Yeah, some areas doubled, tripled.
Yeah.
You know, certain parts of Florida have tripled in price.
You guys couldn't have told me this last year.
You don't listen.
I couldn't tell myself that.
So, okay, jumping back to the intangibles that you discussed, what are some of the things from a buyer's perspective that they're looking for? I mean, obviously outdoor space and more space, but what else? What's like the really
So what we're seeing is most buyers, they really don't want to do too much work. They want something that's more move-in ready, was renovated in the last 10, 15 years. They just want to take their families, get out of Manhattan, get in, and be comfortable. So homes in the higher price points that were move-in ready have been moving substantially faster. Where like it would be get listed on a Thursday, and by Monday evening, contracts were out.
Wow.
I think it's
Correct.
currently still like that right now.
Correct.
For certain markets.
What I'm seeing is that homes that need a lot of work tend to sit on the market a lot longer. For the reason that people don't really, they just want to get out and get in. They don't want to sit there and do work for the next 7-8 months and then get in. They have their kids, they want to get them in schools.
I'm assuming home offices have to be something.
Home offices are most definitely a big thing.
Yeah.
A lot of this.
And I'm seeing people, don't want to do work because, construction prices.
Oh, yeah.
Contractors, they're overwhelmed. There's not enough,
Yeah,
people turning down work.
And I've discussed that before on some other podcasts and videos that I've done. Just the inflationary aspect of all of this. Lumber going up exponentially, 3x. Just supply chain, generally speaking, is something that this country is going to have to deal with at some point very, very soon.
Yep.
Because we already are, but on a systemic level, we need to make changes here because we were every industry was caught flat-footed by this.
Yeah.
And we're seeing the rubber band effects, which going back to you, John. So pre-COVID, we had underwriters risk during COVID and then after COVID. What do you anticipate? And again, we can't hold you to it, but just based on your however many years you've been doing this, how do you
17, by the way.
17, so a long time. How do you feel underwriters and lenders are going to act moving forward?
So it's definitely opening up, and I feel things aren't as tighter as they were. So I have a good feeling that in the next 6 months we're going to be even better. They've learned a lot. These banks have learned a lot from 2008.
Let's discuss inflation, because I did see a statistic the other day that inflation in real estate has jumped the highest, I think, since 2008. How do you see banks building that into their risk profile and underwriting?
So I mean,
It sounds like real estate's going to be a safe, and it's always been a safe.
it's always been
investment.
safe. You know, I mean, rates can't stay this way for forever.
Yeah.
Right? Banks, their spread is super thin. I just think that you're going to continue to open up lending requirements, open up more opportunity for lenders for us to issue that money. We're going to hopefully make it easier for these buyers. Because it became a little tough during COVID.
Sure.
Right.
And with these homes and inflation, right, prices going up very quickly. I mean, they were already going up because
Yes.
of COVID, and now with inflation, they're going to go up even more, which is good for you.
It's great for us, yes.
But on an underwriting perspective, it becomes a bit more tricky because you have purchasers who, okay, they have the loan to value limitations that you went into, but they may have to tap into secondary monetary resources, whether it's HELOCs, other maybe cross collateralization, a whole bunch of, I don't want to call it creative financing,
Right.
but it's not going to be as cookie cutter.
It's creative finance to a point. How can you see it every day, right?
Mm-hmm.
You see it every day where, you have to sell your house first. Good luck. Get your house on the market, sell first, and then we'll find you something. But that timing is more difficult now. So when we try to qualify, I'm trying to qualify people can you purchase this house without selling first? But they're saying, well, I need the money for this purchase. I need the house for my sale. All right, so can you take a home equity on you? People ask me, I'm getting this question every day. Are there bridge loans? Banks don't really do bridge loan, right? There's no
Secondary market, yeah.
there's no profit in there for a bridge loan for banks. It's too much risk. So set up a home equity on their current house before they even list the house, so they can take that money, use it as a down payment, initial down payment, and in that time frame, they'll probably sell the house simultaneous. But I'm seeing a ton of that where people are saying, I need to sell first, or I'm liquidating. I don't want to liquidate my portfolio because it's doing so well in the market. I'm seeing this every day. What can I do to get in this house with little money down? And when I sell, I want to take that money and put it towards the principal balance.
So with that, how do you look at other investments, whether it's securities, cryptocurrencies, another big
Good
one?
question.
How do you evaluate the overall, I guess, general global wealth of that individual when seeing how much they can feasibly borrow?
So when I take an application, it's going to be, I want them to tell me as much as they possibly can. And I tell them, tell me as much as possible. I may not need it all, but the more I know, the better I can help you proceed, the better I can help, Nick find you that house and get into contract. So we're going to look at their, all their assets, all bank accounts, checking, savings, money market, your 401ks, your money markets. Cryptocurrency is a whole different monster, right? Cryptocurrency is too volatile. Banks aren't using cryptocurrency.
So there's no credit given to that.
None whatsoever. Right?
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. But it's hopefully to come, because it's who doesn't have cryptocurrency today or wants to have it, or
Yeah, I mean, I have some clients that have hundreds of thousands of dollars in cryptocurrency.
and unfortunately, so let's say they liquidate that. Now it's a large deposit in their bank account.
Sure.
We can't source that because, yes, they can show proof how they got it, but it's just too volatile. So when cryptocurrency comes up, I say it's just basically like cash that you had in a safe at the house.
Got it.
It's really all it means. But citizens, we can use like a portfolio house, like a house like this, like a high-end house like this. We need reserve requirements for the housing payment for X amount of months in the bank. We can use at Citizens a retirement account, and it doesn't have to be liquid, where other banks have to be 50% liquid or 100% liquid.
So reserve requirements are interesting.
And that's typically on the high end.
Citizens is opening up a retail component, right?
Yeah, we just purchased 81, I think it's 81 branches of HSBC on the East Coast. I think there's 61 or 66 in the metro New York area.
So
and that goes to Florida. It opened up our Florida market as well.
So moving those money market accounts over, especially for individuals and principals buying a house like this,
Right.
it would be, I would venture to say they probably have a lot of money in those types of investment accounts. What, if anything, does Citizens do to kind of, I guess, lower rates or anything
So
like that?
we have, great question. So we do already have in place, and we've had it for years, relationship pricing, right? Every major big box bank has typically relationship pricing. What that is you bring over X amount of money to our wealth department. It'll get you a discount off a rate, okay? Up to an eighth to up to a half a point off a rate, depending on what you're bringing over. And certain funds can be brought over, certain funds are not eligible. But it's, yes, so we do have relationship pricing to bring you down below market rates. So it definitely gives us a little bit of an edge.
Sure. So you mentioned a whole bunch of conditions. I guess in my world and also in your world, we would call those to a certain extent contingencies.
Yes.
Right. What are you seeing, Nick, with respect to? We'll start with the most traditional contingency, which is your mortgage, your financing contingency. Have you seen, because of the competitiveness of the market, people? You saying, "Oh, we'll waive this," and then they come to me and I say, "Oh, hold on, let's discuss this."
They have to. I mean, the prices are so inflated right now, and you're getting into these bidding wars. Like, for example, we just had a bidding war on a house that was listed at 1.6. It's going for over $2 million.
It's crazy.
It's out of control now. It's not going to appraise, right? So there's no mortgage contingency. It's an all cash buyer. The value's there. It's a very unique home built in a nice lot, and it needs a ton of work, but they're still moving forward with it.
Yeah, it's like people aren't blinking an eye at it.
Yeah. That's exactly what it is. They're like, this is what it is. They understand that this is the current market conditions, and they're adapting to it because they've been getting beat up so far. Just even going in at asking that you have to go over.
And I feel that with interest rates being so low, people think this is possibly their forever home.
Yeah.
Right? They may never ever touch this financing again. So it's, they're like, I'll be here and I'll make it back.
So, with waiving those contingencies at the onset upon initial negotiations, obviously, when I send the client over to you, John, that's something where you have to level with me. You have to really dig in here before we get into contract, because 10% upon signing for something like this could be $500,000.
Right.
So, what are you doing to make sure, as much as you possibly can, that this person, again, people do stupid things after contract, I'm not saying, but assuming they don't, what do you take into account to provide as full of an underwriting for a home like this before we enter
This is
contract?
great because this is happening so much right now.
So first thing, these buyers need to understand how the bank works, right? So you waive your mortgage contingency. Bank's not waiving their mortgage, their appraisal contingency. We still need an appraisal done if they're getting financing, and if the house appraises for less, bank looks at the lower of the contract price. So that's our starting point. So they have to understand, right? If it comes in lower,
You're going to have to consummate the difference.
They're making up the difference,
Yeah.
right? Are they okay with that, right? Do they understand the ramifications of that? Because if you're waiving a appraisal contingency, you have to move forward regardless. So we're making sure that one, they have the funds, they are liquid. So we're doing as much, especially as something like that. We're making sure they have everything, out on the table, and I know everything up front.
Yeah. And, and not to mitigate homes that trade for less, but when you're dealing at these price points, it's imperative that the collective team that you're using are speaking to one another prior to contract, because the ramifications, again, it's all relative, as I said. What's a lot for one person may not be a lot for another person, and vice versa. But there's less creative ability, I feel, on a lender's side if you are financing, $3-4 million, right? As opposed to, a $250,000 loan.
Yeah.
There's less flexibility. There's underwriting guidelines and things. Secondary market, selling these things, whether in CDOs or whatever they're called.
Listen, it's night and day. Fannie Mae, secondary to a portfolio.
Yeah. So one thing I have been seeing a lot, especially with this is new construction.
This is
right?
brand new construction.
Yeah. So interestingly enough, I've been seeing this a lot. Hazard issues on my commitments, like a banister, right? It used to be just with the FHA loans, you'd see all these crazy conditions, and you'd say, okay, well, listen, this is an FHA loan, this is what the underwriting requires from the government. But we're seeing this on traditional conforming and non-conforming loans, which what do you attribute that to?
It's just the banks are looking for, they're making sure that there's no risk.
They're really worried about liability.
Health hazard, and risk. That's really, that's really.
It used to be holes in the ceiling. Yeah, now it's like we have to have a banister.
Typically, even on a Fannie Mae, which used to be just FHA, if there was no railing, neither railing. Now on even Fannie Mae stuff, steps that are 3 or more, and it doesn't have a railing.
This just happened to my clients. They're buying a home that they're going to go renovate, and they went into contract, and the appraiser came, and the day the appraiser came, the contractor got a head start on demo, and he took down the railing, and the inspector walks in, he's like, I literally just took down the railing. He's like, oh, you failed.
I have a great story, which it touches on how involved we get. It was 2019. It was an agent's son. Last minute, the underwriter realized that there was no railing on part of the outside back deck.
Mm-hmm.
So called my manager up, said, grab your tools. I'm going to pick up 2x4s, stuck them in my hatchback of my BMW. That looked like it was like perfect pickup truck. And we built it. They sent, we took pictures of it, we sent it to the appraiser accepted it, and we got it approved.
Yeah.
So it's just little things like that we're seeing, and we just said, listen, we can't wait on somebody else to do it.
Yeah.
We're going in and do it.
And I had a very similar issue on a file very recently. So it turns out the buyer was a contractor and said, I can put in the railing, right? And they sent over a proposal for like $2,000, and I said, well, this is a beautiful railing, but again, to comply.
Oh, my railing looked great, by the way.
No, I'm sure it is.
Phenomenal.
But you have Home Depot grade railings, which are enough to satisfy your conditions, and then you have a railing like this one behind me, which probably costs $10,000 or whatever. I'm not a contractor.
Whatever it takes to get that.
So it's all, and that's why it's I always say the practice of law can never be by rote. You have a lot of attorneys that when they're doing these residential type transactions, they'll use the same types of forms for the $750,000, $800,000 house that they will for a $4 or $5 million house, and it can't really be that way, because when you start getting into the granular details, when there are issues like this, again, the stakes are higher, and there has to have been more foresight and thought.
It really screws up a timeline.
That too, and it's important to really give the proper time and attention to this on the legal side, on the contractual side.
Let me ask you something.
Yeah.
So what are you suggesting for your the buyers, drafting our contracts? What are you suggesting that you're doing as a mortgage contingency? Are you saying, hey, let's be more realistic, let's do a 45-day, let's do a 30-day?
Yeah, so typically with a home like this, I'm always worried about underappraisal, because how many comps are
There's not too many.
There's not too many, right? So again, it depends on the appraiser that you get. And these third-party appraisers, third-party independent appraisers, which are on approved lists with lenders, it's a dance that they have to do. They have to be independent, but at the same time, they don't want to over leverage their client. God forbid something were to go wrong. So they always err on the side of caution. So when we come to loan to value issues, it's always a very frank conversation I have with my client. I pull no punches. I say, I want to see your credit report. I want to see all the money that you have in your name. And then I start doing so. I'm basically doing your job on a lesser level.
Which is phenomenal.
Because, again, if the loan to value if it underappraises and the loan to value is mitigated on your side, that could be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
And I want to make sure that my clients always have the ability to go to maybe get a second, to go to a second lender. It really depends and it depends on the negotiation that happens from you. If you say, Mike, we can't mess around here, there's a line out the door, then
which is usually in these instances that's
exactly
the case. There's like 3 backups, they're right there.
Yeah, and
there's no time to play. I had somebody yesterday. He said he's like, I want to go back to the house. I got to accept the offer, but I want to go back to the house. I said, you're jeopardizing a lot right there.
Yeah.
He goes,
and that's the one thing. I actually had a real estate agent calling me yesterday asking me, can they renege on a verbally accepted offer? If they've, and I said, yes. Right? Statute of frauds in New York State provides that a contract over $500 has to be in writing and signed and executed by the parties, right? This is more than $500. So
It happens all the time.
It happens all the time.
Especially I think more so now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, because people freak out. They're like, I'm doing what?
exactly.
Such an impulsive market.
Yeah.
So I don't want to give you the lawyerly answer, but to answer your question, it depends. It really depends on a variety of factors, which Nick will be telling me, okay, Mike, we have some room to negotiate here. We don't have any.
Yeah, if there's no competition.
Exactly.
Right. Then you want those contingencies.
At a price point like this, there's going to be more negotiation because there's more on the line, and typically you would have more sophisticated parties buying or transacting on a transaction like this.
Absolutely.
So we touched on it obviously, but negotiation tactics for something for a home at this price point, how does it differ than something else?
Like same answer as the lawyerly one. It depends. So if we see that there's a lot of competition and activity in the home, we're going to advise you have to be aggressive.
I mean, but
especially in this
let's
market.
call it spade a spade. This market is on fire.
Yes.
You have to be aggressive.
Yes, you have to be aggressive.
So what are like the top 3 things that you're doing going in? You want to secure that home for your buyer client. What are you doing? What are the top 3 things?
Well, first I advise them, hey, listen, we have to get our ducks in a row. We have to bid aggressively. I say we either bid at asking or just under it, just to test the market for that specific home to see what's going on. Usually from that point, we get some clarity from the selling broker, kind of where we stand, if there's more activity. And if there's more activity, then I advise them to step it up a bit. If we see that we're getting into crazy numbers and we get up there, then I say, hey, listen, we have to sweeten the pot. We either put more down to try and beat out the competition that way, or we just waive the mortgage contingency entirely and kind of roll the dice, and I make sure that they have those funds already. And usually these people are savvy and sophisticated, like we said, so they're already aware of kind of what's happening.
Are you seeing contingencies where they have to sell their home first, their primary, in order to secure this?
You know,
I mean, it's something I've seen a lot
it
in the past.
It happens. Yeah, it hasn't been happening a lot lately, and it's a big. Like if somebody were going to come in this house and compete with someone else, and they were like, hey, I have to sell my home before that guy does, before I buy this house, that's not going to fly. You know, the seller's going to want to make a deal and move on and be happy that he finally sold it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I haven't seen it happen in the last year, although it was happening a lot more often the few years before that.
Got it. An issue that me and you have actually dealt with a lot is water and environmental issues. We've had that on a couple of our transactions together. Being that we're so close to the water here, again, obviously within the FEMA maps and the associated, I guess, setbacks and guidelines, what are you doing on the lender side, I guess, pre-commitment to make sure, because that's a built-in expense that the client, the purchaser, is going to have to undertake, right? Insurance.
Yes.
So just walk us through that process.
So goes to my thorough application from my start. I asked, even if it's in the middle of Long Island, right? It's in Mineola. I know there's no flood zone.
Yeah.
I asked, are you looking in any areas that have a flood zone? Right? I don't think so. Please make sure with your realtor that they ask the seller, are they currently...
And it's very easy to find that information.
It is.
Sure. It's so super
And
easy.
it's always a representation that I ask for in my contract.
Because it's important, because I can be qualifying somebody and not have flood in my scenario, and then all of a sudden, oh, we got the FEMA check back, and now there's flood, and it may now throw them off to qualify.
Yeah.
Right. Flood can go as high as $3,000 a year.
Yeah.
To $500 a year.
Yeah.
So it's an important question, and I think it goes to when taking a listing, that's a question that I know you ask. It's super important to know if they have flood. But there's some sellers that I don't have flood. I don't have a mortgage, so and I haven't been flooded in years.
Yeah.
I don't have flood, but we may still fall into the grid of FEMA. So it's part of my upfront questions. I do ask pretty much everybody.
So
I think it's important because it can
it's
kill
super
a deal.
important. It can certainly kill a
I
deal.
mean, we ask it when we take listings. It's like, do you know? And if not, I usually look it up before I
Right.
show
People
up.
say, I don't want to spend an extra $250
And I can't
a month.
stress how important it is to have these conversations with our clients because they'll yes you to death.
Yeah.
Right.
And then they'll say, well, why didn't you tell me this? And it's like,
Yeah.
we did discuss this. And it's just funny how people have selective memory. So it's very important that...
Especially when they're upset.
Exactly. It's very important
I feel every loan officer is different in my industry. Everybody does different things, but the more I know, and I try to just tell them, listen, I'm your friend in this transaction, right? Yes, I'm going to get you I'm the middle person getting you to the underwriter, but the more I know, the better I can direct you and make sure that we're
It's all about customer service, right? At the end of the day, it's a competitive market, not just the Gold Coast, but even within our industries, it's a competitive market. And in order to kind of rise to the top, you need to have great customer service, and you also need to work collaboratively with all the parties involved. That's like one of the first things I learned as an attorney when I first started out was there's many people to this dance. And if one person's out of rhythm, the whole thing's out of rhythm.
Right.
So it's always nice to work with competent people.
You know, I get this question every day. Oh, is bank ready to clear it? I said, yeah. You know, bank is just one piece of, you know, think of a pizza pie. We're just this one triangle that everybody's coming to, right? But you know, we got to make sure title's clear. We got to make sure the sellers are ready and their side is clear. So there's so many pieces, and I make sure that these buyers know it. There's a puzzle here that we got to put together.
Yeah.
You know, so it's important to it's not all going to be on the bank, but you have to follow our lead. And the more they follow our lead, the better we're going to get to the closing table.
Absolutely.
Typical closing times, what are we seeing? Any change?
We're still seeing average I'd say about 60 days. Yeah.
60 days?
Yeah, the underwriting process is definitely taking a little longer, but we're still managing to...
What do you attribute the underwriting process, I guess, on an industry-wide level?
I say, listen, we got, you know, every bank got slammed with
refis,
right?
Yeah.
So it was the perfect storm, right? Normally you're either a purchase market, or normally you're a refi market. It got hit with both. So you know,
and working from home,
and people adjusting. You know, eventually, you know, everybody was working from home, and it was a great oil machine. Now everybody was working at the same pace, but you know, it worked better for me because I didn't have to, I was at my desk. I was better for my clients. I was better for my realtor partners. I was better for the attorneys because I'm always at my desk now.
Sure. On my side, I feel, and we brought everyone back to the office last June, very, very early. The Wall Street area was
dead, right?
Dead.
Yeah.
There was nobody there. But I felt that I had to bring everyone back because just from efficiency and in order to truly foster a collaborative environment on these types of files, you have to be there. They have to interpersonal
you have so many moving
communication.
parts in your world.
Exactly.
You know?
So last point before we kind of walk around this house and salivate is we've discussed people moving to the Gold Coast,
Yeah.
but there's always the other side of the coin. People have to be thinking or have to be doing moving to Manhattan, right? Moving to the city.
Yes.
Because there are deals to be had there. So on your side, how often do you have that scenario where you have someone saying, hey, listen, get me a couple mil from this house and I'm going to go buy a condo in the east side or whatever?
Not often.
Not often.
Not often. It was happening. It happened once in the last year where like the family was like, okay, both our kids are now in college.
Sure.
Like our dream was always to move back into the city. So we're selling it and doing it anyway. Things will recover. Like I saw it once, but
from a value proposition, it makes sense, though, right?
You're
selling high and you're buying
sense.
big low.
It does, but I'm seeing there's an age. It's either people are retiring.
Yes.
They're saying I'm going back to the city.
Yes.
Or
That's
I want to
exactly
or I want to have my first experience back in the city. Or it's the younger generation saying there's opportunity here.
Well, yeah, all the kids that move back home, they move back in with their parents, and now they're like, hey, city's coming back. I can get a great deal on a rental. I'm moving back into the city.
Yep.
Sure. I mean, it remains to be seen.
What I've been seeing a lot of is people buying secondary homes out east in the Hamptons.
Well, not even that. I did a ton last year. Let's stay in the co-ops real quick. The Manhattan. I've seen in the last 6 months co-ops open up for me. Right. You see, you have every deal that I have, but I'm seeing more now than I did over the last 2020. Right. People weren't considering anymore, but now that market has opened up. And I've seen it, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
And again, we can't be, what was her name, Miss Cleo? Remember back in the day, the fortune teller?
Yes. Yes.
But with inflation, with real estate historically being a safe investment, and just with everything that's with the rubber band effect from COVID, I anticipate all three of us are going to be very, very busy
Yeah.
over the
I
next
think so.
12 to 18 months.
I hope so, and I think so because I think if rates start to tick up a little bit, it'll open up the more of the sellers to say, all right, let me get on this,
Sure.
this one
Yeah,
house, and
absolutely.
and that opens up to your question. Your statement before about people moving out of state. I did a ton in South Carolina, Maryland, Florida. But South Carolina is just it's a crazy market. People are
Crazy.
saying, listen, I can stay renting here. I can have a second home and
Still make
working from home.
Still make some
and
of
I'm
that
still
bucks,
doing
right?
it. Right. Yeah,
So
still-
someone on my team now owns 2 homes
Yeah.
up the street from the beach in North Carolina
Yeah.
You guys
that
still
she's
do,
just Airbnbing out,
Yeah.
and they manage everything.
you still do ninja loans or no?
What's the ninja loan?
Exactly. No income, right?
Oh, ninja loan. Yeah, it's no income. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's we need your heartbeats. And everything. So,
So, with that being said, how does everybody get in touch with you, Nick?
You can just look me up on Instagram or just look me up on Google. Nicholas Liapis. That's Liappas. I'm with the Liapis Team out of Compass. Yeah.
Cell phone?
516-214-7761, and my email is nicholas.liapis@compass.com.
And John, you?
so you can find me everywhere on social media. You can find me Google John Perfetti, Citizens Bank. I'm going to come up first. You get me on Instagram at Mortgage by John Perfetti. 516-314-7171 is my cell. 7 days a week. You can always get me.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. And again, I'm Michael Iakovou from KI Legal. We look forward to speaking to you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.